Hot Chip and I Was a Boy from School. It's definitely the remix that turned a corner for me. It was one when I felt I was definitely going against the grain of what possibly people expected from me, or what even I was playing largely in my DJ sets. It was a remix that was fully inspired by the source material, in the sense that the feeling that I got from listening to Boy from School and what it evoked was what I wanted to accentuate. It wasn't a case of taking a melancholy song and amping it up to fit amongst other records in my DJ set. I wanted to kind of take the feeling that it was giving me and expand it and make it, I suppose, deeper for me in my own way, rather than whatever you might feel the term deeper evokes. But I recall first starting it and not really not really getting anywhere that I felt was right. It wasn't until I was kind of stripping it back and letting all of the original parts breathe a lot more. Again, credit to Hot Chip for producing a really beautiful sounding track. Something that I remember when listening to the parts, I could kind of hear inside of it that there was something really special with this band. I suppose if I'd been given the choice beforehand, if I wanted to remix Over and Over or Boy from School, I think I would have probably gone for Over and Over, just because it was a track that I was playing in my sets, and it was obviously one of the biggest records of that year. But the older and wiser me has definitely been thankful for the fact that I didn't remix Over and Over, because in retrospect I don't think it could be bettered in its form that we know and love it. And I do feel that with Boy from School there was definitely a new dimension that was brought to it in remixing it, so I'm really glad of that. I remember the bass notes were made with this old Farfisa organ that I bought from the Mencap charity shop for 50 quid, and it had these bass pedals which you'd play with your feet. So I sampled the middle one into the Logic sampler and turned it into an instrument, and that was the basis of the bass sound. It sounds really wooden and punchy. It's actually a sound I used on quite a few things. I think I can't remember what other tracks, but it's been used on quite a few things. But that I remember as soon as I put it on there, the bass line just kind of fell out of my hands, and I just programmed it in, and that was all of a sudden, starting to take some kind of direction that I felt was inspiring to me. So it was a case of chopping about the original parts that I had, trying to build towards some kind of peak. And around that time I'd also bought this weird synth called an Akai AX80, which was Akai's version of a DX7, but not as I suppose not as iconic. And this is probably the only thing I've ever used it on, but I used one of the sounds in there, just like plugged into a Culture Vulture to overdrive it, and that's that really wispy, like high-pitched sound that comes in, that peaks in the middle. And I remember after I made it or put that part down, I didn't like it, so I muted it and carried on working onto the track. And it wasn't until about 2 hours later that I went back and listened to that part again that it fell into place, and it kind of felt more coherent in context once more had been added to it. And that kind of taught me a lot about, when you're making things, just feel free to throw ideas at it, if, unless you've got something quite concise and clear in your head, because sometimes you end up going back to things and they make more sense later on than when you first tried it. It's one of the remixes that I still play out now, and I feel that it still sounds pretty good. It doesn't feel like it's tied to a particular era or a sound or anything really in that sense. It probably sounds more like a remix that was originally put together by the artist rather than a remixer. And I suppose that's got a lot to do with the fact that when I remix people's music, I don't tend to have what I feel is a signature sound that you apply to remixes that make it sound recognisable to you. And this is probably a good example of one approach that I like to take, and it's probably the approach I take quite often, is to try and make it sound as much like the original artist as possible. This was also the first rework that was part of this so-called Balearic trilogy, which also featured Golden Scans by Klaxons and Scissor Sisters, I Don't Feel Like Dancing. And I mean, the thing they all have in common is they're all a little bit emo, I suppose, and are more geared towards being club records that can take you on, a trip that's quite different to just losing your mind, which back then in 2006, 2007 was definitely was probably what I would have been known for, I suppose.